This forum is organized in response to requests from the private sector following the Somali Investment Forum in early 2015. When we held it in Nairobi, it was a great event, and it was very well attended. And I apologize, I can't do this in Somali. My Somali is a little rough, so I'll have to, if you need some translating, Abdi will cover. But this was a response to private sector requests to do forums local, to do forums around themes, and we said, we'll do it. We agree that we need to change the narrative. We need to show what can be done here, locally. There's so much happening that is, unfortunately, an undiscovered, really a great phenomenon. Next. The steering committee, can you fix that back a little bit so it's a little, okay, it's okay. The steering committee, this was designed by local stakeholders. This is the steering committee. These are the stakeholders, the energy providers, the retailers, and also some of the support organizations that came together and formed a steering committee to organize this forum. They were the ones who took part in the surveys and set the agenda. They asked us to go out and recruit specialists and technicians and specialists. We did that, and the donor community has also responded. Next. It was supported by local contributors. So I apologize for that wonky thing there. It was paid for primarily by local funds. Shuraako is not compensated for this. We're donating our part. We're basically covering the cost of the venue and the meals, etc. Anything we raise above and beyond the amount of the cost of this forum will stay in a fund, and it will go toward another forum, hopefully next year. We called it Somali Renewable Energy Forum 2016, with the intent that there will be a 17, an 18, or however we do it going forward. But this is a call to local private sector. So, Shuraako has produced 2 reports that will be available to you at our table downstairs. One is Powering Progress 2, which is a follow-up to our report last year called Powering Progress 1. Now, unfortunately, we're still working with the printer on that. That'll be available tomorrow morning, we hope. Yes? We did a skilled workforce survey. Part of what came from the private sector was lack of skilled technicians is a huge issue. It's an undercutting, and it disables the growth. We need to address that. So this is actually a skilled workforce survey that was done with the private sector, and they've identified their skill needs. Both of those will be available and actually will be discussed later on. Now, a couple of things. We've all been discussing here the cost. So we know that the GDP, and I know GDP numbers range, you kind of, in this context, you pick a number somewhere in a range, but the cost of energy compared to the GDP renders the entire Somali region uncompetitive. It's very difficult to compete here, and you all know that, if you're a private business. And Shuraako, as it's gone out to look to help fund businesses, constantly runs into cost of energy, cost of energy, cost of energy. We knew we had to address this on a larger level because you can fund in as much as you can fund in, but it's going out the other side in a hole in the bucket because of the cost of energy, unreliable. And it also, compared to its neighbors, creates an inequality. Next. The losses. Generation is starting to come about, but the losses in distribution are enormous. I think the providers know this. So 40% of, try if I can do 40% is loss versus in fragile and conflict affected areas, usually about 19%. Ethiopia only loses about 10%. It's as low as 2% or even 6% in the US. So even what you're generating is going out the other side. This affects costs. It upsets the public. The consumer doesn't necessarily understand all that goes into it, and it creates a very difficult environment. Next. The opportunity. We all know that this is a solar map on the left, a solar map on the left, a wind map on the right. The opportunity is large. The natural resource is there. So we know the opportunity is here to tap part of the answer. Now, one of the things we wouldn't want to put forward is renewables are not the panacea answer to everything. Energy generation in general is the need here, but this is part of the answer. Next. There's a continuum that can address these needs. It starts all the way from alternative fuels on wood, kerosene, and other traditional cooking systems, to hybrid systems, solar lanterns and cook stoves, to solar household systems, community off-grid, and then also larger grid generation. So there's a continuum that will hopefully address through this forum, through different themes, elements of this continuum. Next. The challenges. We did a survey as part of the Powering Progress 2 report. Interestingly, the #1 challenge coming from all of the providers is, unsurprisingly, lack of technical expertise in the workforce. The lower challenge was insecurity, instability, politics, and corruption. So the bigger challenge to them very clearly is the skilled workforce need, and capital comes somewhere in the middle. Next. The financial capital. Now, so when starting a business, it was easy to acquire capital. Well, it wasn't that easy. They mostly disagreed that it was not that easy to find the capital. But where did they find their capital? It came from locals. You can see here in the second one that it was from, whoops, shoot. Go backwards. There we go. I won't do this. So the investors are primarily coming from locals. But then the next column was investors to my business were foreign. They were overwhelmingly not foreign, only there was some foreign investment. So what does that mean? Does that mean the capital is here? Does it mean there's no access to external? That has to be discussed and explored more deeply. Information available on investment or donor funds was easy to find. I'm sorry, donors, but it's not easy to find. Now, you all know that. But this is part of the validation of that, saying it's hard for us to find. Well, you know what? Donors are doing the best to actually make that better. There's a lot of things underway. But this is part of the call from private sector. Make it more available. Make it more easy to find. This is part of that response. I have the funds available to expand my business if I want to. Not necessarily. They're saying we're not sure we have the funds, but do I plan to expand? Absolutely, I plan to expand. So this is kind of the state of play. The human capital side. Was it easy to find skilled technical experts to design, maintain my systems? No. They disagree or they strongly disagree. I don't have the people. We've seen this in some of the projects we funded where very good companies run into a customer service issue when they're trying to keep up with the demand. It's a legitimate thing. How do I expand? How do I hire? That's a real issue. The education system in my sector is adequate to meet my needs. It's not adequate. We know it's not adequate, but we can fix that. This doesn't have to stay that way. And the last, the education training system in my sector will be adequate to meet my needs in the future. Well, they believe it's starting. There's a baseline, but it needs to go a lot further. Next. So, Shuraako is part of the One Earth Future Foundation, which is a larger foundation that looks at peace through governance. We're basically, our gig is multi-stakeholder collaboration. We have a number of programs. One of our implementation projects is the Oceans Beyond Piracy project, which looks at maritime security. The Shuraako project was an outcropping of that, saying we need to look at the environment and opportunity and do that in a meaningful, applied way. So Shuraako was created. So we work within the facilitating investment, looking at making connections, facilitating investment, and creating jobs. And then we joked that we also added and travel agency for this forum because we ended up being travel agents for a lot here. But anyway, that's a joke. It's not really a travel agent. But there's a need for multi-stakeholder collaboration. It requires convening diverse stakeholders who have differing interests and perspectives on a decision or set of issues in order to find creative, inclusive, and solutions to problems of collective action. Oop. Multi-stakeholder collaboration promotes information sharing, the identification of creative solution, and produces better results than an adversarial process. Additionally, the sense of shared ownership amongst participants created by multi-stakeholder collaboration increases the likelihood of effective implementation. All implementers know that. It's difficult sometimes to achieve that in this context. But one of the things we know is, from the private sector side at least, there's an embrace of this collaboration. So next. So without further ado, thank you for letting me go through that and kind of frame it. I'm going to turn the mic over to our keynote speaker, Mr. Anders Pedersen, who will do setting the stage and give his presentation. Thank you very much.